Hello and welcome to today's video where I will be talking about everything that you need to do to prepare for the upcoming Wind Guild War. So yes, if you haven't heard, we do have a Wind favored Guild War, so Earth enemies, in November, on November 7th to be specific in Japan Standard Time. Now, over the past week, ever since its announcement, I've been getting a bunch of different questions. So things like, hey DY, what sort of evoker should I recruit or uncap? What Eternals should I transcend? What weapons should I farm? How many awakenings do I need? Things like that, right? And I received so many of these that I sat down and I decided to make a video about it, just to cover all the frequently asked questions and to give advice on my perspective. So I sat down and I started typing up a script, things that I want to mention in the video. And as I was doing this, I realized that, GBF updates and adds so many new things all the time. And we also have new raids and new events which will introduce new characters or new weapons or things like that by the time this video goes out. I'm looking at you, Noah, by the way. And at that point, I pretty much came to the realization that no matter what video I make, I'm going to have to like edit the comments in the video to say, hey, this has been added, this is no longer the case, blah, blah, blah. And that's just sounded really messy. So what I decided to do, like any logical person would, is to make a wiki page about it. So here I am introducing the newly created Unite and Fight November 2024 preparation page. In the future, you'll probably find the link of this in the sidebar. We're just, I think, discussing what the name should be. But for now, I'll link this particular page in the description below. And basically, on this page, I have what I consider are the most frequently asked questions on what to prepare in regards to Guild War. And what this allows me to do, as I mentioned, is it just allows me to keep the page and the information updated and relevant, right? This is something I plan to do for all future Unite and Fight as well. So let's pretend the next Guild War is Water. We don't know yet, by the way. So let's just pretend it's Water. Then I'll be writing one for Water as well. And you can expect a very similar page in layout for this. The main things I covered here are what weapons and how many you should farm, which raids you should host daily. I'll just mention this briefly because here I mentioned the raids, which I think you should host daily because they have relevant weapons or they drop a bunch of mats that you need. So for example, EVS Solo Quest gives you a bunch of quartz. If you haven't uncapped all your weapons yet, you might need that quartz. So this will give you a minimum of 20 quartz per day. So keep that in mind. But if you don't need quartz, obviously just skip it. And then there's also some non-wind raids, and this is purely because of Mark II revans costs. The Mark II weapons do require mats from Cosmos and Mugen. So right now, these raids are dying because everybody is farming for these Mark IIs. So it's a good time to host them, even if you aren't able to contribute yourself. Just like Lyria says here. It's not actually Lyria, it was me, but you get the point. All right. And then over here, I talk about how many awakenings you might want for each weapon. I talk about which weapon you might want. Just on the topic of weapons, do note that it is a necessary step in uncapping the evoker. So I think you should more consider what evoker you want to uncap before what weapon you want. But if the weapon is your only goal, there is a section on that. We do talk about Dark Opus Transcendence here as well. And the main thing here is that Wind is very, very likely to use Opus main hand with Spartan Ultimate Mastery for its manual Wind burst. So if you are planning to manual burst Wind, very likely having level 250 Opus will be quite impactful, just like we saw in the recent Dirt Guild War in Earth Guild War. I talked briefly about Draconic Weapon Provenance. This one's sort of obvious, but if you can do it, it would be nice. In the last Guild War, it was only really needed for NM250, but it's a good weapon to have regardless. All right, and then in the following section, I talk everything about characters. So in this first section, I talk about Eternals and their potential use cases specific to Unite and Fight. And I talk about their Transcendence breakpoints. So for example, Siete, you probably don't need anything higher than level 110, and Neo, 130 and 150 are the points you're looking for the reasons on the right over here. In the next section here, I talk about the Evoker recruitment and uncap. Now, both Wind Evokers are in a bit of a weird spot, mostly because both are quite good at what they do at 4-star, right? You don't really need to uncap them. Esther is good at OTK and full auto at level 80. By leveling him to 100, it doesn't really provide you with anything meaningful. And then Cuts is sort of the same. Cuts is really good backline at level 80, for his Judgment Reversed passive here, which gives 30% Wind Perpetuity attack if allies are debuffed. Now at level 100, Esther's case, he doesn't really get much new things, and you will pretty much only use him as a sub-ally for charge attack teams. And for that, he's quite nice, but you're not really going to use him frontline. And then Cuts, on the other hand, needs his 4th skill to see use in frontline, and it will most likely be in charge attack teams. Now, due to NM250's hard cap being 13 million instead of 6.6, you are likely to actually see Cuts in manual burst teams for Wind, because Rising Force is looking to be a really, really strong class for that particular raid. All right, and then in this following section, I talk about units specifically only from the premium draw that are likely to see use in the upcoming Guild War. I've sort of separated them into 3 different categories. Depending on your guys' feedback, I'll create more, but for now, these are the ones I've listed. This is sort of a common question I received on, hey, which characters should I be looking out for? What characters should I EMP and level up? Things like that. So this was more to cover those sorts of questions. All right, and then in the last character specific section, I talk about classes. So these are the MC classes that are very likely to see use during Guild War for Wind. As mentioned here, it is recommended to fully unlock ultimate masteries for any class where it is available. I've made a curated list here. These are probably not the only classes you'll see during Guild War, but I believe these will be the most common ones. So think of this more as like a priority. If you have all of these done and you're missing some classes, go get those other classes. But if you haven't done some of these classes, it's probably a good idea to get them. And finally, in this last section, I talk about where to test specific setups. So EX Plus is very simple because it has dummy, but for NM90 and beyond, people often are curious about where they should be testing the setups because the dummy has like unrealistic settings. So I've just listed out certain places where you can test those setups. Now you might be wondering, where's NM 200 and 250? Currently there's no real good place to test 250, but for 200, normally we would recommend M3, so Yggdrasil Arbos, the M3 raid, Yiggy version. But if you look at Yiggy's raid and her triggers, she actually has really, really, really annoying special attacks that make testing very difficult. She has like defense up, mitigate, which lowers your damage, and then the worst one of all is that she actually extends your skill cooldowns, which just makes things very unreliable to test. So at the moment there is, I believe, not really a good place to test NM200, unfortunately. So it's just going to have to be the regular dummy. But pretty much, as you can see here, a lot of this information might be subject to change. For example, once we get those new CCW weapons in October, which is before Guild War, we might get some new classes that I recommend. And that's pretty much the reason why I made this to be a wiki page, because I just wanted to make sure that the information stays updated. So the bulk of it is already there. Expect some changes according to your guys' feedback and as new things are added. But overall, this information's there. Once again, it'll be in the description below. So check it out, have a read, let me know if there's any questions. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Also in the description below, there is my Mond, which you can use to ask me any questions if you want as well. So that's another place you can ask me, or of course on my Twitch channel as well. Anyways, I think that'll do it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Best of luck farming those new weapons or whatever you need to do. And I will catch you guys next time. Bye-bye. Goodbye.